And we're going live. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is McKaylee. I'm with Tattered Cover Bookstore. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this event with us. My name is McKaylee. I'm with Tattered Cover Bookstore, and it's a local independent bookstore in Denver, Colorado, for those of you who may be joining us outside of the United States, outside of Colorado. We greatly appreciate your support. We would not have been able to be here with the past 50 years. It is Tattered Cover's 50th anniversary, which is amazing to say that we are that old for bookstore. But we were able to host amazing authors like the one that we have tonight, and poets like the one that we have tonight because of you. And it may not be a communal space that we may not be able to be gathering together, but we've been able to expand our virtual community. So thank you so much for being a part of that. We also want to let you know that for those who may be in the Denver metro area, you can go visit any of our stores that are open right now, which we have 3 currently, as one is in the middle of moving, that new store should be open in May or so. But right now we have 3 stores open. You can come visit us as long as you're wearing your mask over your mouth and your nose. You can come shop and browse for about 90 minutes or so. Or if you're outside of Colorado or just want to shop in your pajamas, you can do that online at tatteredcover.com. Also on tatteredcover.com is our events. tatteredcover.com/event can check out all the upcoming events, like Young Pueblo, who is another amazing poet who's going to be joining us in late April for Poetry Month. Or even tomorrow, we have Peter Filkins and Sydney Wade are also poets that will be joining us. So you can register for those online. I want to also let you know that closed captioning is enabled for those who might need it. There's a black bar at the bottom of the screen that you're watching me on and a button labeled CC on it. If you click that button, closed captioning is enabled for those who want it or those who need it. And I want to just remind everybody that you can get your copy of the collection that we're talking about tonight, the Apricot Memoirs, at tatteredcover.com or at any of one of our locations as well. But now on to talking about our author and guest tonight moderator. We have Theresa Archer, who's a writer and editor with her BA in honors in English literature and English literature and art history from Vassar College in New York. Born in London, England, she's currently settled with her husband and 3 children in Pasadena, California. Theresa worked in the music industry as a singer-songwriter in her 20s and has spent the last decade as a writer and creative in many fields, serving as the editor for Darling Magazine for the last 7 years. And then we have Theresa Ginnery, who is our poet of the hour. She's a dancer by upbringing, a designer by trade, and an artist by calling. After graduating from the Carl von Busse Institute of Design in Australia, she started her own freelance business. She soon established herself as a sought-after creator, but with design work bursting at the seams, Tess pressed pause and decided to take a sabbatical to explore her inner artist, to express and ultimately create Unbound, which led to her making her tangible art piece, the Apricot Memoirs. These days, Tess calls the wholesome town of, I should have asked how to pronounce this, I'm so sorry, Morwilba home with her stuntman husband and 3 spirited daughters. Her art is in her every day. And we're going to get an example of that right now, actually, as we get to watch her perform some of her poetry. So I'm going to change over my screen now here so we can watch that before we get into our conversation here. So just give me one moment. So I make sure that that's shared with everybody, and please enjoy. I'm so sorry, everybody. Apparently there is no sound on this video. I'm quickly going to start it over for you all so that you can enjoy. I apologize for that. Let me do this for you, and we will start over so that we can hear Tess's lovely voice. And once more, take 2.
The story I'm about to share is a journey that started 4 years ago. On the sunlit shores of Cape Town, life was full, beautiful, and good. Hi, I'm Tess, and this is my book, The Apricot Memoirs. You'll forever know the meaning. I was slow dancing and often sinking in the rhythms of motherhood, creating and making and endlessly running into dreams. I worked hard. I was full to the brim with projects, ones I'd dreamt of and ones beyond what I'd hoped for. A freelancer's dream, growing at the speed of flowers in the sun, and life is full, beautiful, and good. And then there was this one night. I woke to the darkness of my hotel room. I couldn't shake this feeling. And there, a still small voice found me at 2 a.m. It was quiet, but so loud, undeniable, unrelenting, fierce as the first light, but gentle and kindly slow. I eagerly listened. As I woke the very next day, I tied my loose ends and took off my shoes, plunging into wide and open spaces where time wasn't hinged or boxed or used. Reluctant but expecting much, I entered a 1-year sabbatical. It was here, after the unwinding, that the rainbows came. Inspired by my daughter, we painted. Rainbows after rainbows, days upon days, browns, orange, pink, yellow, mustard, apricot. Then the words began to find me in all kinds of places. It felt similar to the way I would use paint, or the sense I'd get when I was dancing, but so very, very unfamiliar, because rather than colours and visuals and paint and dance, it was poems. It was like each word was fighting for its chance at a sentence, dancing, slowly moving, making its way towards me. This story is ever so long and detailed, and this film is short. But the book, well, she tells the story. So here I am, heart outside of my pockets, inviting you into my art. The Apricot Memoirs is my first ever book, originally a self-published piece. But now we are relaunching with international publishers and makers of dreams, Andrews McMeel Universal, who will carry this story further. Whether you are new to these pieces or know these poems like song, sit back and unfold as I share some of her pages. Something I'm made of wants to tell a story. There are words in us, our body carrying them. Verses wrapped in paragraphs, essays wrapped in paper, lining soft walls within us. I want to listen. I want to tell. There is beauty here. There is beauty here. Napkins laid witness, while the ears of flowers listened eager, and sounds tumbled into open wine glasses. It's here I breathe easy, in spaces and places where dreams fall out, with no need to rescue them, because maybe, why not? Too big, too grand? Absolutely never. It's easy to stay hidden in the darkness. Even fools who choose their flowers over and over know that. And in these spaces and places where dreams are held by the light, others believe with you and for you. I'll never unsee the miracle in this. Prayer transcends the ritual of kneeling knees. It's a wild and creative communion, lying within the sigh, the shout, the tears and the dance, a talkative electricity, alive in and through our being. When I say I need alone time, what I really mean is I want to move all the furniture around and move it all back. I want to paint something and leave the brushes to bristle, all because I decided to go wash my hair. I'll forget to take my multivs. I was busy trying on dresses. And suddenly I'll move every plant to the tiles in the sunroom just to water them. The plants will make like a jungle at the front door because there's that book I once read explaining the cycle of butterflies. So I'll rummage around for it, but in my hunt I'll find old photos. Sleeping in nostalgia for what feels like 10 minutes, and suddenly it's dusk. Dinner will be the last thing on my mind. I'll likely throw a handful of vegetables into some butter, and amid the kitchen mess, I'll pour some Spanish wine while closing my eyes at the same time. I'll light some candles, open all the windows, change the sheets, and fall asleep early because nothing excites me more. So when I say I need alone time, this is really what I mean. Close your eyes and smile. He did just as my heart needed that day. He bought me flowers, told me I was crazy, but said he loved me anyway. When imagination returns, it means we are back in our body. The Muse, delightful, playful, duty-less mystery. She leads us fearlessly into wide and open spaces. There's art in my hair, poetry beneath my shoes, ornaments in the sky, and pink lavender in the moon. I'm choosing an agendaless season where hurry doesn't live, but flowers do grow. My insides forever wrestling with the rhythms of fast and slow. I favour them equally. Notice where you are when you unfold. Notice where you are when you have breath. How transformative are words, shaping the worlds around us, just as water carves homes in rocks. A proverb once did this for me: discover beauty in everyone, forever defining how I want to live my life in all matters and things. My greatest undoing, my brightest adventure, all five senses sparking to the music, sweeter than ever before. Sun, a fragrance like dandelion, stars like fire, sand like clouds, and the wine like sweet solace. Eyes walking asleep in my mind, a slow song with an unexpected crescendo. Nothing can prepare one for such a time as this. Let yourself undo. The sooner, the sweeter. Motherhood. If my current ways can no longer carry me, I don't want to row in that boat any longer. I stand face to face with dark yet kind storm clouds, smiling at me with secrets of splendour. And just like a song, I sing right at them with fierce ocean eyes, asking them to sway towards me. I want the change and the thirst and the mess and the surge and the growth and the freedom and the creativity. I want the alchemy of it all to charge at me like a dance with no shoes. We were never created for comfy. I casually ask myself questions to see what returns. That way, the answers can bound toward me without needing to be fully rounded. They twirl and play and even sometimes applaud their own nonsense. laughing as they hold hands with ideas that terrify my inner poetess. As they offer up their swordplay and teacups and saucers, take a sip, turn off the night lamp, fall to sleep.
Give me paint beneath my feet.
I'm barely able to articulate the seasons past. A season that demands more than my pen yet knows how. It's my hope that one day I may have the wisdom to build words around these apricot pieces. And maybe they too will become a book. I'm thankful for the call to yield and all that it teaches. The winds of change, they came and ever so subtly beckoned. They called me into a sandstorm.
I paint rainbows, sunny rainbows, and I bring.
Thank you for being here. The Apricot Memoirs is now available everywhere, all over this beautiful world.
How many ways could I say I love you without saying?
And like I said before, it is my honor to welcome Teresa and Tess. And we're going to have them turn on their videos and their microphones now. Here we go. There they are. Hello, Teresa. Hello, Tess. Our stars. Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. I want to welcome you both and remind the audience that we will have time for Q&A using the chat next to us that you also kindly helped me with the sound on the video for. I appreciate it. Use that same chat for your questions later. And Teresa and Tess, I'll let you take it away for now.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So nice.
Hello.
Nice to have you. We were chatting a little bit before, and I thought it might be useful, Tess, if I told them how we met.
Absolutely.
So this was in 2000, I believe it was 2017-ish. There was a sort of a moment in Darling where I was trying to find some new authors, particularly really artistic authors, ones that sort of understood flow and had a more visual way of speaking, because we loved talking to women in a really particular, almost poetic way. And I was doing one of my rambles through Instagram, of all things, and sort of doing that, find the golden thread. Okay, I like this person's stuff and I like this person's stuff. And I sort of stumbled into your Insta, which was at the time, I think, design. It was beautiful imagery, but I saw what you had written underneath some of your art. And I think I don't know how I wrote you. I think I wrote you an email finding your website. And then I wrote you and said something like, I loved your Instagram. I'm with Darling Magazine. Have you ever thought about writing? And that was the beginning, essentially, right?
Yes. And I think after that, it went on, you basically gave me my first push into that, which never really navigated it at all before that or thought about it. So
yeah, it was this awesome piece in our Dreamer section, I think, or in the Explorer maybe. But I just remember sort of noting the relationship that you had between words and imagery. And so watched you then sort of unlock a lot of words in your life. And then here we are, you know. And I found and sent you a picture of the moment that you wrote me again later and said, oh, I'm going to do a Kickstarter. I've got my book going, which is super cool and exciting. And so I'm really glad to have time to chat with you across the ocean, as it were. You're sitting there. How do you say your hometown? Does she?
It's a mouthful. Murwillumbah.
Murwillumbah.
Yes, Murwillumbah.
What part of Australia is that in?
So Northern Rivers, kind of near Byron Bay. That would probably be a good landmark for people to understand where I am. Inland a bit, mountains, rivers. Yeah, it's very sweet.
Okay, we don't have the longest amount of time. I know the two of us can chit chat a long time.
Yeah.
I really do want to jump in though. That was such a beautiful video and I loved it, watching sort of this survey of imagery. And interestingly enough, when I was prepping to chat with you today, I had picked out quotes that then I saw when you sent that video over. You were already quoting from two of the poems that I wanted to reference. So I feel like there are some really strong themes going through the Apricot Memoirs, which I, of course, have here very happily with my notes on the inside. But I want to first talk about the year that you went into this, which you sort of talked about. But when you took that time, let's talk a bit about how you got into this season of stepping away. What were you hoping to get out of that time? And what did you sort of see at the end of it? Because this all came out of a year away from design. Were you hoping to detach from art, or were you just hoping to detach from something else?
Yeah, so we found ourselves in Cape Town actually for a job my husband was on, and I had all intention. I was very passionate about design at that time. My intention was to get over to Cape Town and just get into it. And I was getting some beautiful clients at that time and feeling really excited about the work, and got there. I was there for about a month and just, head down, and it was growing, and out of nowhere just had this strong sense. I get a lot of different ideas at 2 a.m, and I don't always read into them because I just think it's just my imagination at play. But I just had this sense I had to give it all up, and it came literally out of nowhere. And woke up the next morning thinking, oh, is this just another crazy idea? And still sense the same. And I mean, obviously hindsight gives me a picture of what was going on, but it was definitely, a crossroad decision, because I think there was a part of me that felt like there was things to be birthed as a creator, rather than, I guess with design, you're designing these beautiful things for the vision of someone else. They've got these ideas and you're bringing their ideas to life. And I felt maybe a little bit out of touch with my own inner dialogue and what this story is, like what story I was carrying, and it wasn't really being expressed. And I think that's essentially what was going on, and I was sort of picking up intuitively on that being necessary for me to go down that path. So I was really diligent to it. I took it really seriously and literally closed up my business. I was, finished the jobs that I was working on and wrapped them up and didn't take on any new ones, and then literally closed down my email, all my social media accounts. I just went AWOL, went away, gone, and didn't know what I was actually diving into. But now I can see it was a sabbatical. Right. And I knew I was going to create in that space, but not for anything in particular. I just wanted to play. I wanted to see where I went. Like, did I want to go into paints? I have a history of doing a lot of dance. So was I going to go back into that? Was I just going to do nothing? I just wanted to see, given that space, what I would do with all that space and time. So that led me into some really different things. And I guess if you picture you go on a holiday, it usually takes you say you go on a 3-week holiday, that first week there's unwinding to be done before you really get into that part of the holiday. And I felt like the sabbatical, there was this unwinding that went on. I felt very emotional, actually. There's a lot of tears. And it sounds so romantic. I am a romantic, so everything I say will have that slant. But I remember sitting up, staying sort of in central part of Cape Town, and I'd put my daughter to bed, and my husband would work quite late because he's on set. And I remember putting on music, and it was like the music was louder, or it was like I could eat it or something. It was everything. My senses were coming alive. Whatever I had wrapped myself into, it was almost like I was unwinding out of it, and there was just me, and I wanted to listen to the music. I wanted to write. I didn't know how to write. I was just journaling, but I wanted to do it. I wanted to give it a go. there was this real childlikeness about it. I wanted to paint. I was horrible at painting, but I wanted to do it, and I was painting women, lots of women, and then rainbows. So it led me into rainbows, which is a whole other story. But yeah, that's basically what that year was. And in that year, the most amazing miracle, I fell pregnant with twins in amidst that, which was completely unexpected, as you can imagine. So there was a lot of creative energy going on in that year.
So in that unraveling, you still made a place for receptivity, because you talk a lot in your poetry, but also just in your general commentary about things, receiving things or things coming through you. Yes. How do you find that process as you're writing each of these? Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. Is that a flow? And in letting go, often we can become very resistant to new thoughts, but it sounded like there was no resistance. Or how do you tap while letting go?
Yeah, always a challenge, a discipline even. I guess with the writing, it was, I mean, as humans, we're always grappling with things, we're living our lives, and we have I feel like I have 100 thoughts coming at me every day, and I'm curious, and I want to be awake to it all. And so, always grappling and asking questions, and not all of it's beautiful. Some of it's hard stuff, you're wrestling with these things. And for me, the shorter pieces that were coming through were basically the full stop at the end of this resolve, this inner conversation I was having, this external conversation I was having, like a prayer. It felt like I needed to explore all these ideas and then let my inner dialogue digest it down to these pieces to go, this is actually what I think about these things, and almost see my internal dialogue reflecting back at me and go, this is what I actually think. Yeah, does that kind of make sense? Just connecting with that inner dialogue, because I think maybe, I definitely was disconnected from it in my busyness of design and creating. And it was just coming back to that. I think writing was that, it's this visual, you write it down. I wasn't speaking these pieces, but I was writing them down and looking at it and going, yes, that's what I mean. That's what I see. That's what my soul's been trying to say. That's the question I couldn't answer, or that's an answer I could never find. And that's it. And it was just like this revelation, I guess. And I was writing them down and had no means of sharing them with anyone. But then, as we got back to Australia, sort of I got back on my emails and things. I had no intention of going back to design. At this point, I knew design was done. I knew in my soul, I was like, it was a beautiful time, but I couldn't foresee me going back into that again. And just, bravely started sharing pieces of snippets of things and my story. And what shocked me was this resonance. There was people saying, oh, I resonate with that. And that was really interesting.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that you moved from design to you were doing paint and words at the same time. You were playing with these two mediums, and quite obviously, and I love that you did your own rainbow for the front of your own book, because it's really like from start to finish, this is you and this moment of you all wrapped up. You've got color, you have obviously form and shape, and then you have words. How do you perceive the difference between those for you? Like, how do you enjoy the difference between painting and words, and where does some of them sort of not serve or serve better? And, obviously, like for me, words are my primary tool. They are my primary paint with which I do everything. And the concept of trying to use something else is quite frightening. If you ask me to dance out what I'm trying to say, it would, even though I used to dance when I was younger, that would be really terrifying. But I can see how when someone dances, it does something that I could never say. So what do you see, and what do you enjoy about the difference between the two? Because you're still doing both constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess there does feel like when you're working in one medium, there feels a limitation sometimes. So like paint, you can be creating and you sense that limitation with what you're trying to say. So I've always found myself kind of leaning into words. I'm really careful not to call myself a writer. I would more so see myself as an artist. I like to dabble in all mediums, and I don't think anything should be out of bounds. I mean, I mean, I don't know if I'd try singing, but I often think I would love that liberation of singing, because I think that would be so powerful, just to, like, when you're feeling things, just to belt out something, you know. I still do that, but it doesn't sound any good. But yeah, I love the idea that all the mediums can also work together to create something quite powerful when you feel like one is a lack of dimension in the piece. So I guess probably that's when you discovered some of my design stuff. Maybe I'm an over explainer, I'm not sure, but I would find myself very interested in the story part of the design. So a logo that I would make, it was never just a logo to me. I was like, there's a story in this, there's a reason this curve goes this way. And I found the partnering of the words with the art really helpful to the viewer. And that's where I found that connection with people. They were loving the storytelling, and that's why I think the design stuff was really having a lot of momentum, because there was that correlation between the design and the words. So I found myself carrying that through, and I still feel like I'm learning so much of how to do that. But I love the idea of even marrying dance and words. And yeah, there's just so many ways you can marry mediums. And I just think it adds this powerful, I don't know, expression to it. It makes it sturdy or palatable or tangible.
Yeah, I love that different mediums can do different things. I'm also very drawn. It's interesting how many poems historically have been written about still lifes.
Yes.
And then commonly a connection, you know, even to the point of, you know, Ode to a Grecian owned by Keats, and people literally writing this long poem inspired by a tiny vase, which you obviously are also inspired by many vases. And I know you have many, many more.
Yes.
And there is something that I find in a lot of your work that I noticed early, of you noticing sort of shape and form, and trying to kind of grapple with how to almost love what is tangible with words. Are there different reasons that you are writing these pieces, or wrote specifically in the Apricot Memoirs? Because I know you also have the Moonflower monologues, which go a little bit of a different direction tonally and thematically. But these, to me, they felt quite early on very loving. And what was happening in this season to sort of create that kind of, I almost call it an embrace. A lot of these are quite like embracive of things and of sights and of feelings.
Yeah, I think I have this memory actually of us driving in the car. We're going on a little road trip. We do them quite often. And it sounds so bizarre to say it out loud, but I just felt in love. I don't know. And I think it came from that place of, firstly, doing something quite rebellious. I felt it was rebellious closing down my design business. I felt like a rebellious act. I really enjoyed the experience, because it was kind of like, this thing's doing so well, not doing it.
Yeah.
And there's something about that just, it awoken me, and it made me feel a little bit alive, actually. And then from that place, having, like I was talking about before, that kind of season of unwinding, undoing, and just coming back in connection with inner and outer dialogue, and then just feeling quite playful. Like, this book is a moment in time. It's a season of my life where romance was very on the forefront. I was feeling so romantic. I was feeling very awake to things and alive. And it was very, like I said, childlike. And I wish I could stay in that place forever. You know, I wish that was my permanent state of being, which it's not, but it is very much a part of the way I live my life. These pieces, that, you know, being awake to beauty and the romance, and, you know, finding beauty in the commonplace. But yeah, this season was a romantic season. Like I said, there was creative energy. I was pregnant with twins, and we just gotten back from this beautiful trip overseas, and we lived by the ocean, and I was liberated because I'd quit this thing and I was going into the great unknown. I think my personality thrives in surrender and in that, what's happening, what's going to happen next, anything could happen. And I just saw these anything could happen things happen in that year. It was a special year that year.
Yeah, I mean, I noted a lot of surrender and letting go throughout the book. both with the original and then with the additions even. And I'm curious what it is that you think of surrendering the most. What are the things, because you kind of pop it in as a, I think I said early on that I felt like you were like the most loving older sister when you were writing some of these poems, and there's a wisdom to being childish, right? There's a wisdom just going, it's going to be okay. Life is as it is. And, you know, like when you watch children, they just let go. But you commonly mention letting go. And I'm curious, what are the things for you that you feel like you let go of in order to be in this space?
I guess, improvisation is a really important word for me. There's a magic in it. It's sort of become a bit of a rhythm. You know, you look back over your life and you can see these common themes coming up, and there's like this rhythm in my life. I can look back and see that there's been a choice to make. You know, are you going to carry this on your own? Are you going to hold this? Are you going to control this, or are you going to let it go? And it's, you know, not always are you going to choose the surrender route, but when I have decided to let go of things, I've only ever seen really beautiful things take place after that. Also seen painful things, you know, there's pain in that too. But I guess in this particular season, for whatever reason, there was a surrendering going on, and I was coming alive in it. And there was heavy things to let go. There was a job that had a very secure pay pack at the end of every week, that it was like, here's this money that I've worked really hard to be making for my family, and it's giving us this freedom and we can do lots of things, and I'm just going to get this money and I'm just going to go like this and just see what happens. It's just, I don't know what it was, but there's something about that surrender that I know that was a choice in my life that I had to make, and I had this real strong sense that it was only going to be good that came from that decision. And because of this pattern, it happens in small things and big things, but even in the creative process, we're so often needing to surrender because there's so much frustration in the process, and there's things that go wrong. And I could tell you a million stories of things that have gone wrong behind the scenes with, you know, the self-publishing process, and just big mistakes, like big mistakes where you've got to go, all right, that's the way it is now. And that's the color it's going to be, or it was meant to be. And I think I enjoy the ease that brings in life when we're able to not hold things too tightly. I really can tell when I'm holding things tightly. It's very clear to me. I don't like who I am in that space. And when I'm more able to let things go, I feel myself. I feel myself.
Yeah.
So just letting go.
Yeah, I can see that across the board. I mean, that's a lot of risk, but you're gaining a lot, and you pursued a lot in terms of finding life and finding things that you loved. When you said, this is the last question before we take from everyone else, and I'm very interested in the answer. When you said when imagination returns, we're back in our body.
Yes.
Occurs, it means we are back in our body. And I'm constantly thinking about this line, because so often we think of imagination as an out-of-body thing, as though you leave the temporary and the present and you go, and it's almost a form of escapism. And instead you brought it more to the inside of us and more into the flesh. And there's something about it that I have been really romanced by and have pondered. You know, there are a lot of poets that have dared to comment on imagination, like Wallace Stevens talked about the color blue as the color of imagination. And, you know, there's these beautiful sort of echoes of poets that have gone before you and people that think about it. Why did you make the line that way? Why do you pull imagination into the flesh part?
That particular piece is actually a new piece. It was tucked into the revised and expanded, so it wasn't actually written at the time. It was written last year. For context, it was a revelation, a new revelation, because same, when I think of imagination, you think very out of body and you know, floating in the air kind of thing, which yes, that is imagination. But I'd gone through a dark time, particularly when I was writing the Moonflowers, and sort of after that, we got an opportunity to go live in Berlin for 5 months, and it was a real gift to be able to go. And in that time, I actually felt myself return back into my body. It sounds it's an interesting concept. I just felt myself in my breath. I felt very at home back in my body after feeling for about a year very outside of my body, not in it, not present. And in that darker time that I was experiencing, my imagination was non-existent. It was not there. I didn't find myself in a place of refreshment, wanting to dream up things. And that's very unusual for me, because I love that play with the imagination. But when I was overseas, and after this feeling and sense of being back in my body, I remember thinking at the same time, I'm in my body and my imagination is so awake, and that's connected. And for me personally, there's that connection with being in your body and present in that breath, and also then being able to be anchored and have no bound of where your imagination can go. It's like this beautiful, they're like opposite ends. It's like your feet are on the ground, but your head's in the clouds. And I love that. I was like, that resonates. That's what I feel right now. And if I think of these out of body experiences with imagination, I probably more liken it for me personally as chaotic. When I am not in my body, I'm not in my breath, and I'm in that imaginative place, I actually feel chaotic. There's no clarity to the imagination. There's no, playfulness. It feels more like this, that you feel scattered. You're creating things out of a place of chaos and must and shoulds and obligations, where in the body you're breathing lightly, and you're able to, not all ideas need to be birthed either. You're able to sit with those thoughts and pull down what needs to be pulled down, and let fly what needs to be fly, and also let your mind go where it needs to go. So I hope that answers your question. I feel like it's a topic that could be talked about forever, but that was kind of the context for it.
Yeah, no, that's what I was curious about.
That was beautiful. Thank you both so much for that, and thank you for the conversation. I want to just encourage all of our viewers right now that we are taking questions in the chat, as some of you have already said. And so one we have here to start out with us. Hi Tess, huge fan of yours over here in Los Angeles. As someone who has so many different creative passions, how do you know what to focus on at one time? Do you ever feel creatively scattered?
Yeah, absolutely. Scattered often. I guess it's like when I'm in that creative process, you have this thought and idea, and I guess you look at the mediums that you're working in and you feel compelled towards one. You're like, this needs paint. This definitely needs paint. And sometimes I guess the ideas come to you in their form already. So a painting comes to you in your imagination as a painting, and you find yourself leading down there. And you get a sense, I get a sense sometimes. So sometimes I see the paints and I think, oh, they're just not for now. I'm actually quite angry at the paints. I don't want to look at you, and they're not going to work. And then there's other times I just need to write it all out in my journal and just see what falls out. So it's quite intuitive too, but then also, like I was talking about, in that space of imagination, I think the ideas sometimes do visit us in that form and what they need to be birthed in, I guess.
I think that's an excellent answer. And speaking of it being so intuitive and being an intuitive creator, what does the editing process look like for you? And how was that moving from non-traditionally published to traditionally published?
Yeah, beautiful. I've actually so enjoyed this part, actually, because I would call myself a student in this. I feel like I'm only just beginning these pages. Like I said, they were written 4 years ago. So since then, you're just learning. I'm hungry and curious. And at the time of the memoirs, I had a beautiful, she's actually watching, Melissa, she's tuned in Germany, and another girlfriend, Sky, who's in Melbourne, and I would call them mentors, actually. And I sent them pieces of my writing, and they both had input into that, and sort of one was playful and like going with that imaginative side, and Melissa kind of took that midwife role, I guess, helping me go there and teaching me where commas go and full stops. Like, this is legit like where I was at this time, because it wasn't a strength. It's a new medium I'm playing in, and I'm treating it as art. I'm like, I feel like these words are paint. So I absolutely love the editing process. It's behind the scenes. That's where the magic has been, because these relationships that are formed because of editing, these people are in your writing and they're in your heart and they're in your idea that's vulnerable. So I had these beautiful women that have really carried parts of this. And then, I have my manager now who's come on the journey. She came in early on when it sort of got self-published, and she's often, I'm flicking her things like, how does this sit? And that I love that. I love the playfulness and the banter that goes on. And then obviously having it relaunched with Andrews McMeel, that was a beautiful process too, because I really felt it needed some refinement, because going from self-published to them carrying it through, I wanted to sit with the poems, keep it true, but just, look at them again with fresh eyes and play with them. And I had the team actually, I had a male working on them with me, and that was a beautiful experience because I had so many women imparting into it. And then to work with Kevin, who works at Andrews McMeel, he had a whole new take, and that was really cool, seeing, having that input from him and his whole take on it. So I just feel like there's been a lot of collaboration, and I love collaboration. I feel like you learn so much there. So yeah, the editing is probably, I've really, really enjoyed that.
Wonderful. No, and as a former theater student, collaboration is where I live. That's and events. And I feel like that many artistic endeavors, even people who talk about writing a book is such a lonely process, or writing poetry, it's really not. When it gets birthed into the world, it's been such a creative process. So it's wonderful to hear that you had that same experience. I think this is a fun question. What do your children think of the book?
Oh,
I would think sweet. with the creative endeavors, with the rainbows, your daughter, but I don't know. What do they think?
It's sweet. So obviously my twins are 3, so they obviously see the house filled with books all the time, and they, destroy them. But my daughter Peaches, who's now 7, she's been such a big part of this. Like, she inspired the rainbow. She, we were painting rainbows together in that sabbatical time. When, we did a Kickstarter very early on, and that's what allowed the book to be published. And, that was a surprise. I just did not expect that to even cross over. So when that happened, I was just like, wow, so this is going to be a book. So she was there for that. And then the day that all the books arrived, we had friends and neighbours and everyone over, family, helping us package it up. And Peaches is, of course, a part of that, wrapping up the books. And she has her own copies in her room, and she writes on them. She makes her own books. I think it's been really special. So yeah, and we've got a few events coming up, and I felt it really important that she would be at those, because she's been a massive part of the process. So yeah, they're very involved.
She's getting every part, every side, which is beautiful. So yeah. So we'll have 2 more questions here before we go. I think this is a really interesting one. And Teresa, I'd love your take too, as a writer of magazines, and it's talking about the influence of social media. What is your philosophy and relationship like with Instagram and social media? How do you stay present while also keeping your online profiles updated? And I think, Teresa, you can chime in with some of your perspectives as a magazine writer, but Tess, I'd love you to take that one first.
For sure. I mean, it's an app. It's a great app. It allows us to connect with other creatives. Again, hold it very lightly, but it's also fun. It's a gallery, I guess. You can put your work out there, and people can resonate with it. And, like Teresa and me have connected through this app, there's been mainly the relational part of it has been magic for me. But in staying present, I guess, it's just, you take a photo, you put it up, I don't think too much about it, or obviously there's days when you've got things like this month, I'm on it a lot because, there's things to advertise and there's things to talk about and there's events. So I do get to a point, probably at the end of this month, I won't want to look at my phone ever again. But yeah, it's just keeping in check. And as a mum, you don't really have time you can't always be on it. So you got to pick your times. If I've got work to do, or there's, I'm launching a piece of art, I've got to pick my times. I've got to do it when I'm working in work time, not, dinner time. But yeah, it's such a big conversation.
Absolutely. And Teresa, for somebody who discovered Tess's work on Instagram, what's your relationship to social media look like in that way?
Yeah, so I've never used that random search option that's in there. I only ever did it if I was really out of options. I found it better to scroll through people that I already kind of was interested in, or I would find an artist. I sort of think about it like a visual telephone book. And sometimes I think about it like a bulletin board. Like, you remember in college, we used to put things on our doors, you know, so you go by and you're like, okay, that's their room and that's their room. This person chose to put nothing but just like their name on it. And then this person has a whole board and they want you to write on it, and they have pictures of their family. And I sort of think Instagram and social media in general are like that, where I know I cannot see their room. I don't know what's inside. I can't make any assumptions except what they've sort of decided for anyone passing by to see. But to Tess's point, like, I think it's a place where if you knock on the door and you're interested, sometimes someone lets you in and you can have a genuine connection. You can genuinely learn. I've learned a lot on Instagram from what people think and how they talk. And, you know, a friend of mine, Jedediah Jenkins, he has an account that he would write, and it ended up to him writing his own book. And, you know, he's published 2 books, and he has an amazing relationship with people on there. So I sort of think it is whatever you make it to be, but also you kind of got to find the people that are on the same wavelength as you in terms of what the purpose of that medium is and what it basically is not. And for me, it's not the world, and it will never be, because it cannot be. It's too dimensional.
Yeah.
No, I think I love your analogy. I related to that very much so. It was excellent. Well done. So the last question we like to ask here at Tattered Cover is interpret it as you will. It is for both of you. And Teresa, I'd like you to start, and then we'll end with our poet of the hour, our artist of the hour, as he likes to be
All
called.
things of the hour.
Yes. But what did this book, the Apricot Memoirs, teach you? And Teresa, I'd love for you to go first, and then Tess can finish us out.
I mean, because I saw it as it was coming out, I really was inspired to try things. And I even told Tess this, even though I haven't done it in a long time. I used to do art, but I haven't in a long time. And I just started randomly painting little things and sticking them up on my wall. And I have a little like wall of flowers in my study. And I think sometimes we get stopped from just moving forward in that very childlike way. And Apricot Memoirs really prompted me to just try things that I instinctively wanted to do and sort of forget why I had stopped doing them.
Beautiful. And Tess?
I think so many things, but mostly that anything can happen. I'm still shocked, actually. Anything can happen. And also just the human spirit, like I was talking about before with the editing process, people that come along on the journey with you and, you know, partner with you, collaborate with you, just because they love you and they want to be part of it. I find that even that great, that the beauty of that, the relationships that have come just through giving something a go, you know? So yeah, but so much more, but I'll leave it there.
But I think that's a great one. It's a very encompassing one, and it brings a sense of joy and surprise still to your world and sharing that with us. I want to thank you both so much for this conversation. Thank you, Tess, for your art that you shared with us, and I'm sure that there's going to be many more to come, and we're very excited for it and anticipatory. And I want to let everybody know that you can get your copies of the Apricot Memoirs at tatteredcover.com. Teresa and Tess, I want to give you both a moment to remind people who you are, where they can find you online, and anything else that you want to say before we close out. And Teresa, I'll have you start again, and we'll end with our artiste.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at TER Archer, as in bow and arrow Archer. And I also have a blog, Team Marshes On, and that's it. That's where you can find me.
Beautiful. And yeah, you can find me at Tess Guinery via socials and tessguinery.co. That's where the books are available, and art and all the other things. Yeah, that's me.
Well, and we're so excited that we got introduced to you. I was introduced to you with your poetry from this book, and I'm just very grateful. Thank you for blessing us with it.
Thank you so
And
much.
oh, my pleasure, truly. And thank you all for joining us this evening. You can check out more events at tatteredcover.com as we celebrate April, which is Poetry Month. You can subscribe to us on YouTube to get all of our videos afterwards as well. We want to thank you for shopping locally. For some of you, not everybody on this call, but for some of you watching, it's dinner time out there. So we recommend that you order from a local independent restaurant, mom and pop, just to keep us and help us during this time. We would not be here without you, especially this past year. So if you two will both stick around while I close this out here. Once again, the Apricot Memoirs are available at tatteredcover.com or in any of our stores. We thank you for joining us again tonight. Stay safe, everybody. Happy reading. Thanks all.
Thank you.